America's workforce. Its strength is our nation's success. Join Ronnie Spellman on I Build America podcast as we explore innovative solutions and inspiring stories from leaders and workers shaping America. Discover actionable insights to build a motivated workforce.
I build America.
Welcome to the I Build America podcast. We have Mary Lamparter with us. Mary, it's such a pleasure to see you in person and to spend time with you. And we've been here in your location in Michigan. We've been meeting with leaders across the state that have come down to the facility that you co-founded with your husband just to talk about Michigan and Detroit and what's happening in this great state. And there's so much activity. But I wanted to spend time with you, given all of your work in the community, and I know you have an affinity and passion for our veterans that I wanted to explore with you. We are a workforce development program. So we speak a lot about whether it's job creation or new industries or veterans entering the workforce and how we can continue to support that community. But you've been enormously successful in your career, and your contributions to the community have had significant impact. So I wanted to spend time with you. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes, and I love the jacket, by the way. We were discussing that before. Producer says it looks phenomenal on television, but you're a community volunteer, you're an entrepreneur, an investor, and I know you might give a lot of that credit to your spouse, but you're the co-founder of the Defense Corridor Center for Collaboration and Synergy, and I'm just amazed at what you've done. I want to mention a few items because your list of achievements are very long. But you were the vice president of family programs with the Association of the United States Army, Arsenal of Democracy chapter, and you've done a lot for the community. You were Junior League of Detroit, Boys and Girls, American Heart Association, one of your organizations, the Michigan Opera Theater, Guild and Board of Trustees, Detroit Historical Museum, Bon Secours Hospital. Like, the list is really long. I'm not going to read it to everyone, but you've done a lot, and you continue to do a lot. Dating back from the 1986, you were chairman of the Circle of Fellows at the Michigan Cancer Foundation. Mm-hmm. You've done so much. Welcome.
I've been lucky. I've had the opportunity because when I got married, my husband wanted me to stop working and travel with him and take care of business with him, and it gave me a lot of time that I was able to become, I say, a full-time volunteer.
Yeah. Well, you've maximized that opportunity, though, which is amazing to me, that some people can go one way or the other, and you've decided to take that opportunity to serve the community in every way possible. So I presume you never slept morning, noon, and night, attending meetings and events and participating in fundraisers and committee work. And man, I'm just amazed when I look at the list of what you've done. And as I mentioned, not only the list of what you've done in the past, but what you continue to do today. Grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
I did.
And found your way to Michigan.
I did.
So this is your adopted home?
Now it's been my home for well over half my life. I've been here a lot longer than I was in St. Louis.
Yes, you made me think of a story. I was speaking to someone who was a noted senator out of Massachusetts, and they were telling a story about one of their family members. And the family member had been living in that community for decades and went to a meeting, I don't know if it was city council or some other hearing, and decided to voice his opinion about what was taking place at the time. And so he stood up and made his case. And there was a lady that stood up behind him and said, young man, you haven't been here long enough to make your statements. Now, I think she was born and raised in the community. He'd been there, I think, 50 plus years at this point. And so, but no, you've been very active, and I would say that Michigan is definitely home for you, and you probably know it better than most.
It is definitely home, and it's a phenomenal state, and what's happening in Detroit is making it even more exciting with this wonderful resurgence of the city itself and our leadership in the city.
Now, tell us about the resurgence. What are you seeing? So I'm new to Michigan. I've been here quite a few times, but I don't know it well. But what are you seeing from the resurgence? I've heard that from so many people. There's a revitalization, there's a spirit, there's an energy that's happening in Detroit specifically, in this part of the state of Michigan, and it feels exciting.
It is. It's extremely exciting because as Michigan had gone, or Detroit had gone, as a number of cities, sometimes your big city, unless it's a Chicago or a New York, it gets to the point where there's not a lot of great housing in it,
Right.
and people start moving out. They move to the suburbs, and that's what happened with Detroit many years ago. It turned into a racial issue for a long time.
Sure.
The city went bankrupt and went into receivership, and a whole new ballgame started. But that was really the resurgence, I think, because it unfortunately erased a lot of the debt.
Right.
But it enabled people to come back in, start businesses. Our mayor has done an amazing job with getting rid of dilapidated housing, doing things like that. Of course, safety is always something that everybody's concerned about. Our city is extremely safe now, as any big city can be. But we now hold these massive events, the NFL draft that was on national TV that gave a whole different picture of what Detroit is.
Right.
The National Guard Association of the United States held their conference here last year. So our National Guard from all over the country, the top guards people were here, had an amazing, amazing time. Our Adjutant General headed just a spectacular 4 days here. So we're putting on these great events now, and people around the country see, and our housing has improved. Young people are going downtown. I like to laugh because my husband and I are not young any longer, and we don't go downtown unless we can find valet parking at a restaurant, because for us to park and walk 2, 3, 4 blocks to get to whatever event we're trying to get to just doesn't work for us.
Sure.
There's so many people on the streets now, you can't drive in our city.
Okay.
So unfortunately for us, we've missed that young person mark to go downtown and have a great time.
Sure.
But it's truly amazing what's happening.
And I hear there's been a resurgence of your sports teams as well. They've done phenomenally well.
The Lions have just put the whole city on fire the last couple of years. And for the longest time, bless our Lion fans, that when we had the worst record for how many years, they would still come to the games.
Right.
I mean, it was pretty incredible what our sports team, and I think the Lions is the greatest success story that we have right now, not only the city, but the Lions have been rebuilding, and we've come so close the last year, 2 years now, and we're going to get into the Super Bowl.
And were you around during the Barry Sanders days back in the,
the days when that was about the best of the heyday, but now it's been, I don't know how many years that we haven't done quite well. But yes, the Detroit resurgence is absolutely amazing as far as the city itself. And then, of course, the sports teams, just it's like the cherry on top of the cake.
I love it. You know, what's fascinating about a lot of the sports teams, and unique to Detroit, though, I don't think many people recognize this, you have a lot of sports teams for all the major professional areas, that the baseball and football, and it's just incredible to see. A lot of cities don't have all the teams like you have.
And we not only have them, but we have 3 stadiums right downtown Detroit, all within half a mile of each other.
It's fantastic.
So
and a lot of that leads to great economic development. I was speaking to an economic development professional who's worked and built economic development teams across the country. And what he said to me I thought was really fascinating. He said, I would take having a professional team any day over any other business from an economic development perspective, because although businesses are great and he welcomes them to his locality, those sports teams bring an identity, a culture. It's a different kind of economic development that spawns across a lot of different segments. So when they're doing well and they're bringing tourists into the community, you have hotels being utilized, you have retail shops being utilized, you have restaurants being utilized, and their ecosystem and impact is huge.
Exactly.
And I suspect is that you're seeing a lot of the impact of that phenomenon as well.
We are, and to see the fans dressed in the colors of our teams that are in the
Right.
restaurants, the bars, tailgating, doing everything on the streets downtown. Like I said, you don't go downtown on a game night anymore.
Right.
We don't anyway.
Right.
So-
And and people might ask, well, Ronnie, why the sports team significant? But it does. It brings jobs. It brings opportunities.
And it brings excitement.
revenue. It brings excitement and as I mentioned earlier, the culture, and it can really shape a community that will help it continue to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So you work a lot with veterans as well. I know that we had a conversation off air. Tell me about your work with veterans. It's such an important part of this program. The owner of one of our companies that sponsor the program is a veteran. He served for several decades, and he's all about supporting our veterans and helping them through their transition from service to private sector. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your
I
work.
think the transition is wonderful. That wasn't something that I particularly got involved with, but there are a number of organizations here in the city and in Michigan that do help with that. But I got more involved with helping veterans when they came back after tours of duty that
Right.
maybe wasn't the most pleasant.
Sure.
And they came back with seen and unseen wounds of that conflict that they might have been in. So I became involved with Guardian Angels Medical Service Dogs.
Okay.
And they're located in Florida, but I became their regional coordinator here in Michigan, strictly a volunteer position, but worked with them for, well, going on 12 years now, I
Okay.
guess.
Very nice.
And the biggest thing that I could do for them was help fundraise, because Guardian Angels donates their dogs at no charge to that veteran or first responder. So I started in a small way, holding a fundraiser, and I think maybe we raised $40,000 that first year.
Wow.
I was lucky that I had a lot of contacts in the defense community, a lot of personal friends that found out what I was doing, and they fell in love, as I did, with the mission and what those dogs do
Yes.
to save the lives of that member. And not only save the person's life, save the family, because a veteran, as we've heard, often isolates.
Right.
They don't go out of their home. If they do, it's 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's around to go to the grocery store.
Right.
Families suffer, children suffer. They don't have their mother or father going to baseball games, football games with
Right.
them. So I loved that mission, and because I became passionate about it, I guess I was infectious, and I spread that to a lot of defense community organizations and companies that I had contacts with. So I held Michigan, it's called CMM, Celebrate Michigan's Military.
Okay.
And I held that event for 10 years. And the last event we had, I think we raised about $240,000. So I raised well over $1 million over that 10-year span
Fantastic.
for CMM. And decided last year I needed to step away. It had become so big, well over 250 people that attended. And that was my focus for a lot of years, because those service dogs change the lives of that member, of that family, the dynamics. So that was my passion for the last 10, 11 years. And I still represent the organization.
Okay.
Any way that I can. I speak to groups that maybe want to hold a fundraiser, or they would need more information or want to know more. I just, at this point, have stepped away from holding the event. It got bigger than me, I guess.
How did you get connected with the organization to begin with?
By accident, the woman that started it, Carol Borden, met the wife of a general that we had here at the Detroit Arsenal.
Okay.
And she became interested from meeting Carol. The business at that point in time of the organization was only about a year old. So
okay.
Carol had come here at the request of Yolantha, And I was at this really small event, and I met Carol and one of the gentlemen she had paired here in Michigan and his service dog. And I literally fell in love with the mission.
Wow.
And I'd been holding an event 2 years prior to that benefited other military organizations.
Yes.
And I switched the recipients from those other organizations to Guardian Angels.
Yes.
So it had been something that I'd done a couple of years in advance, but it had been 10 years later that I was still changing it over to Guardian Angels that benefited the service dogs.
Now, do they take the service dogs? These aren't retired military dogs. These are dogs that were trained just for this purpose.
Exactly.
Okay.
Headquarters, as I said, is in Florida. Most of the dogs they breed and raise.
Oh, okay.
So they're German Shepherds.
Okay.
They've had more success with German Shepherds, but they'll start training these dogs at about 3-4 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
Getting them
Truly
used
young.
to people.
Right.
So they could have, at one point, I think they could have 70, 80 dogs on property, from puppies to dogs that are being ready to be paired. But it takes almost 2 years of training.
Right.
So these dogs are just trained for PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, diabetic alerts, seizure alerts, mobility issues if someone's in a wheelchair and can't really move around or drop something on a floor, that dog can pick up. So the training is the biggest part for 2 years.
It's amazing.
So it's very expensive, and that's how I got involved in the fundraising part.
Right. Now, you mentioned to me a story off air about COVID and what happened with the organization and the need to have these animals delivered here in Michigan. Tell us that story.
Well, during COVID, no one, when a dog is ready to be paired and that recipient goes to Florida and spends 10 days, because that recipient also has to be trained, because they now have 24/7 appendage, almost, if you will, at their side, and they are totally responsible for that dog. So they go through 10 days of training, expenses paid going to Florida. Well, during COVID, no one was traveling, so there were dogs that were ready. In this instance, for Michigan, we had 7 recipients that were ready to be paired here, and the dogs were ready, but the recipients couldn't go to Florida. So they drove 2 vans with these huge crates and the dogs, spent 2 days on the road bringing them here to Michigan. And this facility that my husband and I owned at the time has a very large meeting space in it. So we had 4 days of pairing 7 recipients with these dogs that were ready.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was pretty impressive.
Now, I suspect you've kept up with some of those veterans through the years just to see the impact, how these dogs change their lives. What can you share with us about some of those interactions and improvements and impact?
There's one gentleman, he's had his dog for about 7 years now. He went back to school, got a college degree.
Nice.
And is doing very, very well. Another gentleman has his second dog now because his first one medically had to retire.
Okay.
But he did the same thing. He went back to school, got a degree, actually works for the VA in the skilled nursing area. There are some stories, one that got in a very dark place and actually family was out and he decided that was going to be it.
Right.
And his dog realized I can't even tell you how these dogs do what they do, but the dog came charging in to his bedroom where he was sitting on the floor with a weapon in his hand.
Right.
And the dog literally pawed and got his hand down, and those are the stories that happen. So,
and I ask that one thing worth noting for our podcast, that these are not scripted. I didn't ask you that question in advance. And when I look at what our premise is, it being workforce development, preparing people for opportunities, then we also have this focus on veterans and their transition. I didn't expect you were going to make those statements, but the idea that this dog helped to stabilize these members, former members of the military, they went back to college and they're now working. So the idea of being able to share this opportunity with people around the country, that this is an option for helping veterans address their challenges and get into the workforce. This is an amazing opportunity and option that people might not be aware of. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't expect you to share that.
Yeah.
And so this is a delightful understanding now that I'm hoping that people will recognize as an option for our veterans.
Well, and our veterans have so many skills.
They do.
The discipline, which we hear often that our upcoming generation may not be as disciplined as those that are, 30, 40 years old. So our veterans have that ability to be disciplined. They have the knowledge that they have brought to whatever that job is, from 4 years of service or 30 years of service.
Right.
And it's just a matter of trying to find those companies and organizations that are looking for that kind of person.
I love it. So, Mary, what's next in your journey? You've done so much now, and I'm reaching a point where I get to look back at my career, and I try to take a moment just to appreciate what was done. And sometimes it's kind of hard to put it in perspective because it's just me living in me. But what's next? What's next for you?
That's a very good question, because it's an inside joke, but as a friend introduced me, inadvertently said something to the effect of, well, Mary is no spring chicken.
Right.
And that's
I
another
understand.
story in itself that's quite funny.
Right.
But I'm going to be, I hate to say this, I'm going to be 80 next February.
Okay.
So I don't know that I have a huge amount of volunteer career ahead of me.
Sure.
I will always stay involved in whatever way that I can. I'm still involved with Guardian Angels. I still want to represent our veteran community. And I've been lucky over the years. I've gotten to know a lot of different organizations. I just visited the National Veteran Home here in Eaton Rapids. It's about a 2-hour drive from Detroit. And it's the only one in the country that's a National Veterans Home. But it's not for veterans that are disabled necessarily. This is for families that need to learn how to function in a business world. It's an amazing organization. But I tell you that because I was able to bring one of our channel Fox News people to meet us at the home, and she's going to do an amazing piece on the Veterans Home.
Wow.
So if I can help be a connector,
Yes.
that's probably where my focus will be, is trying to promote our veterans, their needs. We still attend a lot of our Army events, Air Force events. We will still do those kinds of things, my husband and I, and be as good of a connector as we can. So that's probably my area of expertise, is who do I know from all of my many years being around, and how can I help introduce someone else that might be able to be helped along the way.
So before we close, then tell me about the National Veterans Home. I'd love to hear more from your visit and what it represents. And that's absolutely amazing, what you just described.
It's a property of over 600 acres.
Oh, wow.
And it's in Eaton Rapids. It's been around for, they're just celebrating their 100th anniversary.
Okay.
And it's a group of, and I may get numbers wrong, but there are, I think, 31 or 41 homes like you and I would live in. Anywhere from 2,500 square feet to a 4,000 square foot home.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they are sponsored all over the country. and a family has to be approved to live there. They can live there up to 5 years.
Wow.
No rent, no charge, but that family could be in school. They can have their children in school. The home is taken care of by the property for the first year. But then, and they have what they call red, white, and blue stages. The red stage is where that person or family living in the home is assisted if a furnace filter needs to be changed,
Sure.
if something needs to happen. They move, if they meet all these criteria, they move into the next stage where the product, the furnace filter, is provided, but they have to put it in. So they learn how to take care of a home. They can save so they can buy a home.
Right.
But it's all kinds of schooling, and it's hugely complicated. I can't even begin to tell you all the different things. They have a farm that they're raising some of their produce on. Some of the veterans or the people there may be disabled, but they can work on a farm. So they're learning skills. They're learning trades. They're going to school. And at the end of 5 years, if they stay there for all 5 years, they can walk away. Maybe they have the money saved that they can buy their own home. It's really incredible.
That is absolutely amazing. And I hadn't heard of that program. I think about the Job Corps program, which was a federally funded program that provides housing and training and skill development and meals for people ages 16 to 24, which could include veterans under the age of 25. But what you just described is an incredible opportunity for people.
And it doesn't even have to be a family. There was a young lady that was being interviewed by our Fox 2 person that had come. So I didn't hear the interview. We didn't eavesdrop. But she has, I think, 3 children.
Okay.
She had been there for 5 years. There's no husband in the picture.
Right.
But she, whatever the skills are that she obtained, she got a degree, and she is now leaving there after 5 years of being there. She's going back to Florida, where she was from.
Yes.
But that's what she was able to do, and she would never have been able to have survived without the security of a home, number one, not having to pay for that home, and being able to keep her children in school, not provided right there on campus, but her children go to regular school.
That's fantastic.
She gets them there. There is a school bus, but she gets them there. So she's one of those success stories, and I'm happy to connect you.
I love it.
If you'd ever like to learn more about it, because it's the only one in the country, and we have it right here.
We'll try to add it to our podcast when it airs. I think that'd be important. And so here's what's fascinating for those that are listening. Before we spoke, you had some reservation about coming on. The question you asked me is, Ronnie, what do I have to do with workforce? If there's anything in our entire conversation, that alone is an example of what other people need to know, because that's a great opportunity to support a veteran getting back into the workforce. Housing is such a major expense for most people across the country. It can, in California, it's oftentimes more than 50% of their income.
Yeah.
But so if you take away that housing component and what they're doing at Tunnels to Towers, which is great with them buying the homes for service members or people in the police departments, and for spouses that may have lost their significant other, is helping to resolve that specific burden and issue of housing. And what you're doing is something very much similar. You're giving them a chance to reset and rebuild and get back into the workforce. So that program is incredible. Yeah. So yes, and I told you this before, you said that you have so much that you've offered to the community that is workforce related. And I appreciate you sharing that, and the dogs that are helping people to get back on their feet as well. I appreciate you being on the program. And I'll leave you with this, because as I've aged as well, the whole premise of our program is helping people share their stories, their ideas, their information, helping people to connect, which you discuss. But also there's so much that we've learned in the process, and being able to give that to other people so that they can learn and help them with either their individual journey or help them to help other people in their journey is so important. So you've left an incredible legacy through your history of work and from our program today. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and all I can say is that I have been very blessed to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the I Build America podcast, where we're bringing you information, ideas, success stories, and opportunities that will help shape what you're doing within our workforce development community across the country. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the I Build America podcast. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and be sure to join us next time for more insights and inspiring conversations on building a powerful American workforce. I Build America, building workforce success one podcast at a time.
I build America.